Everybody, welcome to another edition of Midas Letter Raw. Today is Friday, August 27th, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host Ed Mileski. Ed, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, James. Thanks for asking.
Is the skin melting off of your bones out there?
It's torrid.
It's torrid. Torrid. Yeah. That's a good word.
Thank you very much.
I like that word.
Edward.
Edward. Torrid. Torrid Edward. Does anybody ever call you torrid?
Not anymore. Once upon a time.
Not anymore.
Well, yeah.
It's
how about that shipping index we were just talking about?
We will get to the shipping index. So today our focus.
Shitting index? No.
The shitting index. You want to shit your pants. No, so today our theme is improving your macro knowledge of the stock market. And so we've got a few interviews, of course. First, some housekeeping business. Our show is sponsored by Voxtur Analytics, trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol VXTR and trading in the United States under VXTRF. We are going to be talking about Voxtur's most recent acquisition. Briefly, we have an interview with management of Voxtur to talk about that next week. But bottom line is, we feel it's very positive for the company because it just deepens and broadens the data richness of Voxtur's offering across the entire real estate ecosystem. Full disclosure, I own shares I bought out of the market, bought in a private placement, haven't sold any, got an option, and we are running a marketing program for them, so I am fully conflicted. Ed, by extension, is conflicted. And so we're essentially not to be trusted, as I like to say. However, I do like to think we have extremely good taste in who we choose to align our brand with, don't you think, Ed? Anyways, interviews today. We have Andrew Thut. Andrew Thut is the Chief Investment Officer of Forefront Ventures. If you puppies don't stop fighting, I'm going to beat the snot out of you. Quiet!
Quiet on the set.
Quiet on the set. Andrew Thut is the Chief Investment Officer of Forefront Ventures, who's been on our show repeatedly over the last few years. Then Kyle Kingsley will join us now. He's an MD, CEO of Goodness Growth Holdings, trades on the CSE under GDNS and on the OTC under GDNSF. And then finally, Francis Bellido is going to join us. He's the President and CEO of Quantum Numbers Corp, QNC on the TSX Venture. And that's a really interesting thing. We don't own shares in it. We're not presently conflicted, though we are in discussion for potentially helping them out.
It's been trading a lot of volume. A lot of volume.
It's been trading a lot of volume, and it
seems to be trending in, it's cybersecurity, right? Cybersecurity.
Right. Yeah. And it's a very esoteric kind of technology, quantum number generation.
Can't even talk about it, it's so esoteric.
Well, this is the thing. We'll let Francis Bellido do the talking on that one. But yeah, first we're going to turn our attention to a chart that Ed and I have been following over the years. And it's not Voxtur, though there's Voxtur's chart. Look at the action in that today. Beautiful.
Yeah.
74. This is the onset of our marketing program kicking in, so lots of new investors are hearing about it. But this is the chart I'm talking about here. This is the Baltic Dry Index. I'm going to full frame this just to make it easier to see because the ticks are very small. They're not bars. But here's all that really matters, and this has great implications for what is going on in the world today because essentially the Baltic Dry Index is an index of ships available for transportation of dry goods across our oceans, which is how most of our stuff arrives from China, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia. And the interesting thing is that 1 year ago today, this index was trading at 1235, and it is now trading at 4193.
Almost 4 times.
Almost a 4x gain.
Three and a half.
And what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, what used to cost $1,500. A small 20-foot container, FOB, the docks in Shanghai, used to cost $1,500 to ship FOB any dock in America for the most part. And now that cost has gone up over $4,500, some cases over $5,000. There's shortages of containers, there's shortages of the products that are shipped, there's shortages of the raw materials. So
this is also suggesting inflation. Like things.
This is inflation.
This is.
The price of shipping has inflated by a factor of 4.
What if you don't have any shipping? You don't make any money.
Then you're not going to have any ship. You'll be shipless. But yeah.
Can I ship my pants?
You can ship your pants. You can ship anything you want these days, though the cost of it has just gone up 4x.
Yeah, that's pretty telling.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the Baltic Dry Index is indicative of the fact that costs are rising, not just for raw materials, but for shipping as well. If we've seen a 4x increase in the cost of shipping, that implies a 400% inflationary trend within just dry shipping. So if you don't think that translates into way more than 2% target inflation rate, according to central banks, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Well, there's so many factors, right?
Well,
there's umpteen million variables, blah, blah, blah. The point is this, and the 10-year rate, 134 I saw today. 134.
Ooh, 134.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's moving higher.
Yeah.
Though we're seeing volumes on the TSX Venture are, we checked at 11 a.m., it wasn't even 33 million shares. So yeah, we are in the midst of the summer doldrums, and as we discussed not that long ago, in a year where markets have done very well, the sell in May and go away effect will be amplified because so many people have made so much money that now they've got to go out and spend it.
Yeah.
Spend it at the resort.
They'll go away further.
They'll go further.
And they'll come back later.
Yeah. Stay longer. Stay way longer.
Spend more money.
Spend more money.
Then come back to the market and make some money.
Well, theoretically.
Later.
Now, so this all sort of like, where is this going for our September-October season? September-October, notoriously the very inflection points of the market that establishes the trend for investment season, which begins, in my view, right after Christmas. So you've got all your year-end tax loss selling is over at the end of December. You've got your general market sentiment will be determined in that September and October phase because that's when everybody's coming back. And so when people come back to the market and they're going to be, the percentage of the market that's not
also
algorithmically
September and October aren't generally good months for the market.
Well, they're not generally good months for the weather either.
Yeah. Well, good point.
Yeah. So, so the Baltic Dry Index is out of control. Let's take a look at
Copper.
So copper.
What period is that?
So this is looking back to, this is the day-by-day 2-hour play. So this is only going back to August 20th. But year-to-date, let's look at copper.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So as we all saw, copper sort of came out of a years-long range-bound doldrum of its own, below $3, and promptly took off in May, touched a high of above $4.80 a pound, has since been sort of selling off, and as you pointed out, Edward, the copper market is digesting the move, the big move from $3 to $4.80, and so this is part and parcel of that, where it's drifting sideways, drifting lower, drifting higher.
Yeah, the more it goes wider out here, like the more it keeps drifting without breaking below, say, that $4 number. It tried to the other day and immediately snapped back around 4.25.
Yeah.
That's a healthy price. That's saying things are, there's
Price
demand.
of copper is now above $4.
And if it ever started to break out of that 480, I got to tell you, it could go to $7, $8, $9 so fast.
Is this a prediction?
I'm just saying that there's so much liquidity.
Yeah.
And people look, everybody's got their eyes on what's breaking out.
Right.
And you start to, amplify, magnify.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could get interesting. And everything you read, back to carbon free. Let's batteries.
Yeah. Well,
So we're there. We're
more copper.
Yeah.
We're going to need more copper. Copper?
Copper.
Copper, doctor? Anyways, so there's copper, but interestingly also the price of, well, let's see. Let's just pull up lumber here. Lumber has sort of started
that's
to...
unbelievable, that chart.
Yeah, look at that, eh?
Whoa.
So,
I mean, if you're long up here at the very top, you're going, yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah.
If you're still long,
yeah.
you're going to the poorhouse.
Yeah. Well, we're back at essentially November 2020 levels. You know, it's
Which
starting...
was what? That was 250, wasn't it, back there?
No. This is 475 per thousand board feet.
Okay.
But quickly looking at the rest of the market, Bitcoin starting to recover from its sell-off that saw it trade. Wait a sec, this is gold.
You know what? That's what the Bitcoin people say. It's gold.
It's gold, yeah. So here's Bitcoin. After the sell-off back here, now it's starting to make another run for maybe break higher levels, heading towards 50,000 currently. It's amazing to me how, the crypto space is it's just such an artificial speculation.
Can I make a point here?
Please.
Just a technical point. You know, when we had that drop, that precipitous drop down to 30.29, now look at the steep, sheer fall of that. And you know what? The more I look at charts, the more I've been exposed to charts over my 40 years or whatever it is, I got to say, they usually have to go back and sort of fill. And that's what it's doing. And I bet you we're very close to the peak. But,
a peak or a breakout again?
Well,
Could go either way at this point, technically.
I think we're grinding up. We're trying to back and fill that.
Yeah, but we've got the characteristic higher highs and higher lows building here.
But not against there. I'm talking a little more longer term. Yeah, sure. In the next month or two or three, you could easily go to 52, 53, or to 40. But I'm wondering if that that topping action back, when it was in the 60, what is that, 64,000?
Well, the lower end of this range, call it here, is 44, and the higher end right here was peak was 64.
Yeah. I think that's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
But crazier things have happened.
Crazier things are always happening.
Always.
All right, so our next guest is is the Chief Investment Officer of a cannabis company we've been following for quite some time. Seems like things might be changing for them. Here's Andrew Thut, Chief Investment Officer of Forefront Ventures Corp. My next guest is Andrew Thut. He's the Chief Investment Officer of Forefront Ventures Corp, trading on the CSE under the symbol FFNT and trading in the United States under the symbol FFNTF. Andrew, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. Andrew, can we start with an overview of what is the situation with the company now that the co-founder Chris Kane has now stepped down and Leo Gontmacher is the CEO?
Yeah, Leo became CEO in the winter of, or the late winter, early spring of 2020. And Chris, who is a dear friend, a large Forefront shareholder, was really critical in the early part of Forefront because he really is a world-renowned expert in setting up regulatory bodies around cannabis, and navigating the regulatory regimes in each state. Chris was really critical. And as the company has, increasingly focused on, the nuts and bolts operating in the cannabis industry, it was a good time for Chris to kind of go and pursue some of the other things that he was wanting to do around social justice and advocacy. So Chris is still, very big shareholder of the company, and is still on as a consultant. I spoke with him last week, so it was kind of the right season for him to go off and do some other things that he'd been waiting to do.
Right. Okay. Well, good for him. Let's move now to the most recent financials. You reported a net loss of $6.2 million US in Q2. How is the outlook for profitability going for Forefront?
Well, from a cash flow standpoint, from an operating cash flow standpoint, we were positive several $1 million. From an adjusted EBITDA standpoint, we turned profitable in Q3 of last year. So we made great strides in streamlining the business, making sure that the cost structure was streamlined as well as we came out of 2020. And we went from a company that was burning about $3 million a month in January of 2020 to one that flipped to EBITDA positive in Q3. So we've continued that trend of having operating cash flow from operations positive. And we are awaiting two critical things that we think are gonna inflect that meaningfully higher, our cash flow profile. One is we're opening our third dispensary in Massachusetts, in Brookline, which we opened on this past Saturday, which we had a very strong opening weekend, which we were pleased about. And then the second critical component of that is we're opening what we think is the largest cannabis processing factory in the world, 170,000 square feet in Commerce, California, we have been waiting on final inspections from the county, the fire department in LA County for about 6 weeks now, and we're hopeful that we're close to the end there. But really, entering the California market, which is one of the largest cannabis markets in the world, with what we think is a very disruptive, low-cost production facility, combined with the opening of our third dispensary in Massachusetts, we're pretty excited about the ability for cash flow and our EBITDA profile to inflect meaningfully higher.
Sure. To put it in perspective for our viewers, the California market reported $5.1 billion in sales for the month of July, and all of Canada reported a whopping 300 and some odd million. So really huge market. Is that 170,000 square foot facility strictly an extraction and concentration facility, or?
It's all extraction and producing our 25 plus different brands of product. And, we have over 1,000 different SKUs that we're gonna put into the California market. The interesting thing about 4Front is we're one of the few multi-state operators out there that have proven our ability to successfully compete in highly competitive markets. So our first facility was in Washington State. When that facility is the number 2 flower producer and the number 1 edibles producer in Washington State. Most competitive market in the country, where it's also driving very healthy EBIT margins. And so because we've sort of perfected highly automated facilities and low-cost production, we thought we were uniquely qualified to enter the California market, where, frankly, operators have had some trouble given the slow rollout of the legal market, given the prevalence of the black market and the gray market there. And basically, what I want people to take away is we think that we can come into California with our low-cost production. We can undercut even the black market cannabis producers by 20 to 30%, and we can still make over 30% EBITDA margins in that state. So we are just chomping at the bit to get that facility open and up and running, because we think it's going to be very disruptive in that market.
Sure, it sounds like a game changer for 4Front as well.
It is. Our goal is to have scaled production in every state that we're in, and so we announced last week that we broke ground on a massive facility that we're opening next year in Illinois, in addition to the smaller one that we already have. We also are building out our footprint in Massachusetts, where we want to be a scaled producer there, where we can wholesale all of our products. And obviously California is a big piece of that puzzle. And the only other piece that we're waiting on currently is we have license pending in New Jersey, which we applied for in 2019. We've been waiting almost 2 years to hear, and our feet on the street in Jersey think that it's coming in early September. So if we could win that license, we would have just an even more robust portfolio that we could bring our low-cost production and products to.
Yeah, interesting. So then the market for your products, I've got to think, in those key markets is getting very competitive. How do you sort of expect to mitigate the growing competition from well-funded multi-state operators such as 4Front?
I think that the key to cannabis right now, and where we think the sweet spot is in the value chain, is in being a finished goods producer. It's not being a farmer and being a cultivator, though you have to do that in certain markets where you need that biomass. But the real key to cannabis is having low-cost production. And the reason for that is because there's so much price elasticity in cannabis end markets, meaning that if you can give a consumer a quality product at a much lower price, you take outsized market share. And that's what we've done in our facilities in Washington. We've started to take meaningful market share in Massachusetts, and we plan to do that in Illinois and California as well. And so price really is our brand. And that we think that brands at this point in the cycle, or this point in the maturation curve for cannabis, are largely overrated. If you can give customers a really quality product at a great price, you're going to take share, and you're going to do it without signing up, XYZ celebrity. And so to offer customers that low price quality product, you have to have your low cost production dialed in. And I would submit that a lot of the competition haven't really had to think about how to get cost out of their production yet. A state like Massachusetts wholesales flower for roughly $3,500 a pound US. We were able to make over 30% margins in Washington wholesaling flower for under $1,000 a pound. So we have a real expertise that's tried and true, that's driven results in a very tough market, and we're bringing those to less competitive markets. And we think this low-cost production is a huge differentiator for our value proposition.
You bet. So it sounds to me like, the sweet spot being in finished goods is the result of, the brand experience that still defines a lot of consumers' preferences. Brand experience obviously modulated by price. Do you think that there's a future risk of the commodification of finished products as well as bulk flower, bulk biomass, as the markets become a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more saturated?
I do. I think that there's going to be a certain commoditization of all products, but what I think that is fascinating, and I was just on the West Coast vacationing with my family and was able to pop into a couple of dispensaries out there. And you can get an ounce of flower for $30, and you can get an ounce of flower for $290. And so what you're starting to see as the market matures is almost a barbell, and where there's a mass market product, and then there's kind of a premium product. And, I think that we're able to sort of be that mass market product where, you're seeing 80% of the consumption is from 20% of the consumers. And so that's really the sweet spot where we want to play right now. I think, once the markets continue to mature and customers continue to experiment with the different form factors, what works for them, I think that there will be more brand loyalty as we move out. One of the things that I always say about cannabis is with alcohol, when you draw that analogy to alcohol, there's been so much experimentation that we've had over our lives with alcohol. I know that I don't like gin, and I know that I like tequila, and I know that I like to drink a Coors Light on the golf course, not a heavy IPA. And all of that experimentation that we, is just ingrained in our culture with alcohol is still going to happen with cannabis. And I think is when people figure out what they like, and they're going to have consistency of experience and consistency in that product, then brands will really start to flourish. But as it stands, I think that, the bulk of the market right now is shopping on price. And if you can give them a good product at a great price, you have a huge leg up.
Okay. Well, Andrew, we're going to leave it there for now. Sounds like you guys are making fantastic progress. I'll look forward to talking to you again in the near future. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
You bet. Bye for now. Yeah, all right. So there's the chart on Forefront. Obviously, the heyday was back here in February. back when all the cannabis companies, the whole cannabis sector is sold off by like 16% since February.
Yeah, it looks like more than that.
Yeah, but as Andrew indicates, these guys I think they're going to come out of the
You think
dark.
they got the right talent?
I think they've got the nuggets. I think they got the gold.
Chicken McNuggets?
No. Gold.
So what's your
I think this stock is probably going to do a lot better than it has been doing. The revenue is going in the right direction. The profit margins are going in the right direction. They have the, focusing on the brands and the finished products, I think is a winning move. So I think that Forefront is probably a buy down here.
Do you
Personally,
think Forefront's at the forefront?
I think they're at the vanguard, and possibly about to
Vanguard.
the vanguard. Possibly set to break out. So
Well, we're at a point here technically where it looks like a potential here for support right where they are.
yeah.
Of course, you wouldn't want to see it break that, but you know what? If good things are happening, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk a little bit about Voxter and this big move today from, traded August 24th down as far as 63 cents, now trading at 74 cents. That's quite a move in the August doldrums.
In this terrible market, that's 16%.
Yeah, and so what's driving it? It's probably a lot to do with the press release recently put out about their acquisition of Zome, ZXOME, which they acquired for $15 million US. Zome broadens the depth and the breadth of their data offerings across the valuation sector. All right, our next guest is in the cannabis space as well. Goodness Growth Holdings, Inc. CEO Kyle Kingsley joins us now. Kyle Kingsley joins me now. He's the CEO of Goodness Growth Holdings, Inc., trading on the CSE under the symbol GDNS. Kyle, welcome.
Thank you. How are you doing this morning?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing? I love your T-shirt.
Thank you. Yeah, no complaints on this end.
So as a medical doctor, and considering your choice in clothing, I'm assuming that the business of Goodness Growth Holdings, Inc. has something to do with cannabis.
Yeah, spot on. We're very interested in bringing the power of plants to people, and I don't know a plant that exemplifies that better than cannabis.
Sure. Okay, so then tell me about the business of Goodness Growth.
Yeah, Goodness Growth Holdings is right now laser focused on our 5 core markets as a multi-state cannabis operator, and this is very compelling licenses, generally in limited license states. Our 5 core markets are New York, Minnesota, Maryland, Arizona, and New Mexico. And we've really just sort of doubled down our focus, both from a capital and team bandwidth standpoint, on these 5 core markets.
Sure. And what is the size of the total addressable market in those select markets?
Well, it's substantial. Market by market in New York alone, there's 20 million people. We're one of 10 vertically integrated licensees there. Obviously, it ticks down from there, 5.7 million people, probably collectively about 15 million people in the other core market states. But more important than the total addressable market, in my opinion, is the sort of the limited license nature of those states. And so, if you're one of, just comparing Minnesota and Colorado, both have about 5.7 million people. We're one of 2 licensees in Minnesota. I believe there's 700 or 800 in Colorado. And so independent of, total addressable market, the actual, souls that we're responsible for on the cannabis side are much more substantial in a setting like Minnesota.
Sure, you bet. So I noticed that brand strategy is a big part of your approach and that you actually have some very successful brands out in the marketplace. Do you market those brands to other companies?
We do. In places where we're able to wholesale, we do that. We're really starting to focus more on wholesale and predominantly in New York and Maryland. And we do have a wholesale apparatus in Arizona, which is taking off. Great Chief Marketing Officer, Harris Rabin, a gentleman who came from InBev, both big pharma and big alcohol background. And so the branding aspect is really important. Our differentiator is we like to bring products that ideally work a little bit better or bring a differentiated consumer experience, which I think is going to have more legs long term than slapping your name or slapping a brand on sort of a commoditized standard product.
Sure. So then is your focus more medical, more recreational, or are there brands that address both?
Yeah, there are brands that address both. It's really a regulatory dividing line. Most people who access cannabis across the regulatory spectrum, be it for medical market or open adult use, are accessing for reasons of wellness. And so we're really catering to giving people a great consumer experience, and whether that's to treat their cancer pain or to reduce their anxiety at night and everything in between. We're just looking to really fill that wellness niche and help people across the spectrum. I'm a fan of helping the well improve their lives rather than kind of slicing things up into these artificial differentiated categories that oftentimes are just that. They're artificial.
Sure. Then, so from your perspective, is the eventual federal deprohibition of cannabis something that you need to happen to realize your full potential, or are you able to grow on a state-by-state basis without that possibility?
Yeah, both situations are pretty good for our business. The federal dysfunction is part of our opportunity, able to get a foothold in these limited license siloed states. But we're very excited about decreasing the cost of capital, getting some banking reform. Our business is in a good position either way. We've really built ourselves. We lived through 2019. We're really building ourselves to sort of thrive independent of federal change.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's intriguing. Okay, so tell us about your financial outlook for the next year and for the most recent year. What kind of revenue are you doing?
Yeah, we just put out guidance here for 2022, which was between 35 and 55 for EBITDA, between 140 and 180 for revenue. And we're kind of a little bit of a delayed story in that most people are still looking at 2022. But with absent Arizona, Maryland, if you look at Minnesota, New York, these are really 2023 and even 2024 stories. So we're looking at the end of 22 for adult use go live in New York. We're in the process of building a very substantial indoor grow there, one of the largest in the state. And Minnesota actually is including flower in the medical program. That doesn't start until early next year. And so I really see Goodness Growth as having we'll have a great 2022, but we're 2023 and 2024 are going to be even more substantial for us.
Sure. It's intriguing to me when I hear about newer cannabis companies, but I've realized that they're not necessarily newer. It's just that I haven't been able to keep up with the full gamut of companies coming to the market. How did Goodness Growth get started?
Yeah, this was all the way back in 2014. So this has been my nearly full-time job all the way back 7 years now. And it really was, me and our co-founder, attorney here in Minneapolis named Ross Hussey. We put our heads together. We had some scientific and medical connections. We then partnered with, labor and really worked hard to put together the best application that had been seen to date. And we got one of only 2 licenses in 2014. Here in the state of Minnesota. A few months later, we got one of 5 in New York, again, with a focus on just really the medical/scientific approach. At the time, it wasn't a professionalized industry, and we were just looking to insert professionalism, and that was very differentiating. Fortunately, now there's a lot of very professional organizations in the space.
Yeah, you bet. So you're not in California, though, which is arguably the largest market. I guess not really arguably. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of too little, too late for us to jump into California at this stage. The relative upside that we'd have there would be small. Again, nearly limitless licenses. I understand it's fragmented based on the municipalities, but we're much more interested in these limited license states. Again, one of 10 vertically integrated licenses in a state of 20 million people versus one of thousands of licensees in a massive state like California. Eventually, you have to play there, but for us, that's a few years out. We're really focusing on these core markets.
Right. And it's interesting to me that you are actually in the retail space, you're in the brand space, you are operating dispensaries as well as grow ops. So that's what rather a well-integrated cannabis story that most companies can't sort of lay claim to. How is it that you have expertise in all of those areas?
By law, we actually had to learn that. And so it was excruciating to start. We had to be vertically integrated. We couldn't even outsource security in both Minnesota and New York. And so we built that ourselves. Again, this was starting 7 years ago. And so we had no choice but to develop that. Home delivery we do ourselves in New York with our own kind of back end and systems. And we had no choice, just being honest. Very nice to be there now. We have a lot of flexibility. It seems unlikely long term that you're going to be vertically integrated indefinitely. I'm talking, 5-10 years out. But it definitely gives you a lot of options here at this early stage in the game in these limited license markets. So vertical integration was a curse initially, is now a blessing for us.
Well, so then if there were to be interstate commerce permitted in the cannabis space, would that be greater an opportunity for you guys, or would it represent a threat to the opportunities that dysfunctionality across the federal realm presents?
Yeah, it's both. And I think it's a long ways out for that actually happening from a practical standpoint. States are heavily incentivized to keep these job producers, these revenue producers at home and not import from other states. We've taken a balanced approach. We really are looking to have one very substantial facility in each region. We've also taken an approach where we have grow facilities in very low cost production areas like Arizona, where we actually are on the cusp of having 20 acres operational there. We have licenses in places like Puerto Rico that become very interesting tools in sort of interstate commerce world. I believe personally that that's 5 years plus out, even with federal change sooner than that. It's just the states are so heavily incentivized to keep these jobs and businesses home. So we're comfortable either way. I'm most comfortable with what I see as the likely timelines is that you're 3 to 5 years out with the interstate commerce stuff. But we're, again, looking into the future and ready for either eventuality.
Sure. So tell me about the aspect of the future for your business that excites you most.
Yeah, the multi-state operator, there's very few businesses that have the magnitude of upside we have just on the regulatory tailwind side. New Mexico, New York, and Arizona have all gone adult use or will go in the next 12 months. Minnesota's adding flower, and Maryland could as early as next year go adult use. And so 4 of our 5 core markets are going adult use, 1 adding flower. But one kind of sleeper that we have is our IP company, Resurgent Biosciences, which is laser focused on developing IP that's monetizable, short or long term, in the cannabis space and beyond. And that's pretty interesting as far as a very cost effective value builder. Long term for goodness growth is this IP company, Resurgent Biosciences.
Huh. Sounds exciting, Kyle. We're going to leave it there for now. That's a great update on the company, and I will be following with interest. We'll have you back soon. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you much. Thanks for your time.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Goodness Growth Holdings, obviously at the lower end of the recent excitement in the cannabis space. Again, reflecting that sort of incremental drop since February 2021 that has taken more or less all cannabis companies lower, though I think their focus on the recreational space might be a game changer for the company.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to see a lot of these charts that are bottoming out here in August. I think we're probably going to see a little bit more, well, certainly more liquidity. Look at the volume down here.
Yeah,
It's been
drying up?
Drying right up.
Is that sort of something to do with the heat?
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know what? Think about it. You're about to do something, and you think, oh, I'm tired.
The market's a little parched down here. But the cannabis space entirely represents a opportunity at these levels, if you ask me, because they're all down. And
I'd like to see some signs, though, like to your point about
reversal.
You want to see some of the action turn, some of the, like the RSI, it's still a lot, and I'm becoming more a believer in trends.
Right.
I want to see the trend change a bit.
Trend. And then the trend's your friend.
Trend's your friend.
Trend's your friend. Okay, so that's Goodness Growth. So yeah, also complicating factors post-August return to markets is this rising interest rate. Obviously, now that we've got $5 trillion in additional stimulus happening, the cost of money is going up again, despite the Fed's best efforts. And, what's that going to do to the markets come September? Rising interest rates are always bad for markets, right?
You know what? They can be okay for a little while, but generally speaking, that's right. And if you look at that downward trend, and it looks like a little double bottom there, straddling right where your vertical.
Right here.
Yeah, right there. And now we're breaking out of that pattern here. You can see that now. That's and that I'll tell you. And if you really look at these charts, you'll see more and more there are 1 and 2 month trends prevalent.
Yes.
And after 1 or 2 months of shit, you get 1 or 2 months of shinola. Something like that.
Shit and shinola. That's what it's come to, is it? Anyways, but that's going to be a very telling factor. What's this saying about the potential for, lumber's edging higher, interest rates edging higher?
Yeah.
Is that going to put a damper on the housing market come September?
I think because so much spending is going to occur, that I think we may have to just see little higher rates, and yet the liquidity will be there,
right,
to buffer it.
Okay.
That's how it looks to me. And I think if, like in copper, watch copper, watch crude oil, watch the commodities that are required, and if rates go up, they're going to go up. I think it's going to be the high multiple stocks that are going to crater.
Right.
But it's all,
It's all a hazy mystery. We don't know what's going on.
We'd like to think we do.
We pretend we do. We sure talk a mean game.
Well,
actually, one would argue that.
What do you really know? What does anybody know?
Who knows?
Who?
Who knows what anybody... Who? All right, so it's time for audience questions. Big McDonald wants to know, do you agree with Morgan Stanley's Mike Wilson's bearish views on U.S. equities setting a year-end target on the S&P 500, 4,000? So that would
knock it down 10%, I think.
Yeah.
10 or 15%, 12%. What is the S&P 4,500
right now? Well, let's take a quick look at that chart.
As we sit here, you just get the feeling there are so many conflicting signals. Like that the market may be in a bit of a state of flux where it could grind higher.
S&P 4482, just having set another record yesterday.
Yeah.
So
it's been
it looks like a...
that trend is intact, right?
Yeah.
So from there...
Well, this is the trend of money printing in the United States.
Well, there you go.
And central bank quantitative easing globally.
And
all that money is coming into U.S. markets because look at this chart.
Look
Let's
at the
go
money
back.
printed from 2008 to present, and then you think what that factor is, multiply by what the market was back then, it's almost dead on.
Exactly.
It's about, look at if that doesn't get you a little nervous, like at some point, but I think it's going to do an explosive
move upward.
Yeah, and that'll be
So
it.
you're saying you think Mike Wilson's wrong? Okay, we can live with that.
Well, but it could happen in, say, in a month from now, and then in 3 months from now, he'll be right.
Right.
That's how, how it can shift.
But anyway, so this could happen.
This
could happen in September, October, like a major correction. This was a 30% drop.
Well, 30?
33.89 to 23.87.
30% drop.
33% drop. And then on to new levels.
But look at trend. And then major correction, trend.
But here's the interesting thing.
Couldn't we go down to here? In 3 or 4 months?
Well, to me, for the guy from Morgan Stanley, Mike Wilson, to say, I'm calling $4,000 in September, it's like,
that's not crazy. That's not stepping out.
Yeah. It's like, you could be right for 15 minutes.
Well, you know what? He could be dead on. If he's dead on, then he gave an accurate assessment.
But look at this. Volume. So this is 2017. The volume suddenly dropped significantly and stayed that way right through to 2020, March 2020, when this thing happened.
Okay.
So
go back to 2008.
2008.
I want to see what the plunge was. Or did we already do that?
Well, here's 2008 right here.
Okay, so went from where to where?
Went from 1544 all the way down to 743.
Cut in half. Okay, cut in half.
Cut in half.
There's an echo in here. So if it's a cut in half, so if Where would the market be if it got cut in half from here? Where are we at now?
Well, the market
we're at
halfway would be right
15,000?
here. Yeah, right there.
Okay, so now, why, if it can happen there, why can't it happen there?
Well, it can. I'm not arguing with you there.
So, and we saw a 30% correction, but we certainly could see 20, 25 here.
My point is that calling a $4,000 market in
Yeah.
NASDAQ in September, October is like, that's meaningless. Like,
Yeah.
you may as well just be going like this.
Flapping your lips in the wind.
Exactly. Like what? You got some profile on CNBC, you got to say something. Oh, I know, I'll make a pussy-ass call.
It's inside track.
The market's going to be 4,000 in September.
But
Yeah.
let's say maybe the guy's smart enough to realize that the way it's set up, we won't see more than a 10% correction.
Yeah,
Which is a,
Safe call then.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Kathy Lewis wants to know, is the Taliban taking control of Afghanistan important for markets? Kathy, I will say no.
It might be important for crypto markets.
Uh,
It's probably more important for crypto markets than normal markets.
What's the value of the Afghanistan economy right now today? Or actually, what is the
Less than it was.
value of the Afghan economy as a percentage of the U.S. economy?
minuscule?
Exactly. So that's exactly the effect.
Yeah,
it's
but I
gonna
think there's could be a lot of crypto stuff going on in there, you know, because it's
How can you-
surreptitious, it's arcane, it's all those, you know.
Yeah.
Ooh, what's going
have.
on?
Right. I don't think it's significant.
Well, not significant, but you know what? Some money could be moved. Crypto money could be moving. I don't even know how it works, so don't ask me.
Robert Rodriguez wants to know, are weed stocks waiting for federal legalization for its next bull run? I don't think they're waiting for legalization. I think that the financial performance of the cannabis companies is going to start to catalyze a reversal to the upside. As we're seeing in our interview program here with Forefront Ventures, with Goodness Green, with all of the cannabis companies we're talking to, I think that I don't think the markets need federal legalization, though if that were to happen, it would be a major bull catalyst. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, you know, look. There's been enough action in that space. Unfortunately, when it went legal, that was the signal to maybe that valuations are going to start to count.
Right.
And it's always about the valuation, and so much. We saw how much easy money was made.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, I keep looking at patterns, and I still see a pronounced downward trend. Sure, anything that helps. But what we've seen in Canada is that every month now, they're selling more cannabis.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that's true in the U.S. as well.
Yeah, well, last month, California reported $5.1 billion in cannabis sales. Canada last month reported $30 million in cannabis sales for the whole country. So,
What?
yeah.
You're saying it's like 20 times us?
Yeah. California, 42 million people. Canada, 38 million people. Not
Similar.
so far. Not
Similar.
Not dissimilar.
Yeah.
Clearly, Californians smoke a lot more weed than Canadians.
Well, I
Or-
guess if you lived over there, you'd probably want to smoke more weed too.
Well, or this is more what I think is the case, is that Canadians more frequently either grow their own or buy it off the black market before they buy it in the retail market.
I was going to say the black market. Yeah.
So I think that's what it.
black
that's the
market's
difference.
thriving here.
Yeah. Dan Thorough wants to know, hi James, you always talk positively about psychedelics and the reason for your sunny disposition. Can you talk about any specific positive thing you got from a trip and what drug? Boy, Dan, that's a
Loaded
dangerous question. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I'm going to say that the
what
most.
did you think about that one?
Well, I'm thinking about it right now.
Okay.
But no, I'm going to say that the most positive experience I've enjoyed that I mean, there's been so many, first of all.
Yes.
Secondly, what is the most memorable? I'm going to say the most memorable time that really made me realize that life is not to be taken too seriously was one time me and 3 friends, we ate acid. And as we started tripping, this was in the summer, and I think I was probably in my early 20s, and we started walking around Thorold, Ontario, and doing silly things like we changed all the letters on a sign, one of those roadside signs in a plaza to say ping, free acid LSD, and we just changed it and carried on. We came across a guy's lawn who had just had all this sod put down, and the lawn was freshly sodded. We rolled it all back up and put it on the pallet and carried on. And we did all these just
Oh yeah, you're a real nice guy. See?
silly little
That was
pranks
me,
like
you
that.
prick.
Well,
That was my lawn.
anyways, we took all the rocks that lined this one guy's driveway, and we lined his neighbor
I
across
don't
the
think
street.
you know what? I think we've had enough of this. This.
But that
Are you-
was
oh, yeah.
singularly stands
So
out in
much
my
fun.
mind.
Ho, ho, ho.
Well, it was one of the most hilarious nights. Like we never got
Not for
stuck.
them.
Well, I don't know.
You think
would
they were
you not
laughing?
think? Would you not
Oh,
think like,
Jesus.
why are all of our rocks now lining our neighbor's
Hooligans.
driveway?
You're hooligans.
Mac wants to know, what are your thoughts on psychedelics decriminalization versus legalization? Decriminalization versus legalization. I guess decriminalization, where the cops say, we're just not going to bust you, but we're taking your drugs.
Take your drugs because we're going to use them ourselves.
That's right. Legalization is where, yeah, now we can buy them in stores. Decriminalization is the important first step on the path to legalization. So either or are very, very desirable for me. I mean, you know, psychedelics need some possible regulation oversight, because if you do too much in too short a period of time, you can really mess your mind up.
Yeah.
Mind you can do that with cannabis too, with the concentrated extracts these days.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. Bertel Neal, is oil fundamentals positive or negative in your opinion? Ed, I'll let you take this one.
Well, I watch the price of oil
Religiously.
daily.
Yeah.
You know, and next, like,
To the point of
well, you know,
unctuousness?
you talk about oil, you talk about copper,
Yeah.
right? And they say that copper is becoming a new oil, and yet there seems to be a bit of a firm tone in the oil market. So I think if this market continues, or this world continues to spend money for this infrastructure multi-trillion-dollar program, I kind of favor, you know, I'm in the camp that even though long-term I think oil may go lower, I think in the next year or two, I think it could go quite a bit higher.
Okay, so positive.
Yeah, I'm positive for the next year or two, but then
All right.
after that, it gets
All right.
cloudy.
Our next guest is Francis Bellido. He's the CEO and president of Quantum Emotion Corp, a company that's involved in the business of random number generation. And to understand better what is meant by that, I'm going to let Francis do the talking.
Stock's getting a lot of volume lately.
Yeah,
a lot of volume.
Looking good. We don't own any, and we're not conflicted on this yet, though we are talking about probably helping them out down the road.
Yeah.
But anyways, here's Francis Bellido to tell you about it. My next guest is Francis Bellido. He is the president and CEO of Quantum Emotion.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
What is the business of Quantum Emotion?
So the business of Quantum Emotion is actually to develop and eventually commercialize what we call our next generation of cryptographic solutions based on one particular technology. It's called a quantum random number generator.
Okay, so
and randomness, it's, as you know, it's at the core. It's the cornerstone, or actually all the encryption keys that ensure, you know, security over communications, in particular over the internet.
sure. So then this is I assume, a random number generated by a quantum computer.
No, it's not generated by a quantum computer. It's generated by actually the exploitation of some of the quantum, quantum mechanics properties.
Ah,
And you know that randomness is extremely important, you know, as you're to use it, because again, it's the backbone of encryption keys.
yes.
Because, you know, I mean, it's very important that how you communicate your encryption keys, that produce signals, are no connection one way or another, because if there is, any connection, you can predict what's going to be the next signal, and you can basically steal it,
Sure.
So randomness is extremely important, as, is probably the most important component of encryption. So unfortunately, it's extremely difficult, and this is what, maybe people, they're not familiar with encryption or cryptographic. It's very difficult actually to produce randomness. In nature, in fact, we're living in the world what we call that's surrounded by almost phenomena that are, predicted, in fact, by, classical physics. It's Newtonian physics, but they're all predictable. In fact, most of the things we see around us even have an element of determinism, and so they are a little bit predictable. The only way you can obtain a real pure random phenomenon is actually to rely on the property of quantum mechanics, quantum physics.
Okay, so then the purpose of the company is to improve security in the internet world then? Exactly.
Improve security and make actually communications over the internet, but this has a multitude of implications. Almost every vertical of the economy is in fact affected by cybersecurity. So the problem today is, as you probably know, it's becoming a huge problem. You can see almost every day on the news that there's been cyber criminality acts, that have been perpetrated all over the world, and particularly, of course, in countries that are wealthy and have a lot of money. So, and they can basically today almost reach anything. When that even the big American institutions are affected, by cyber criminal acts all the time. And it's becoming, actually, used to be a nuisance, in the past, and I think today it's becoming a huge, actually, strategic question. Cybersecurity, and when you listen to most of the the heads of the states, and governments, in the Western world, they will always tell you almost that cybersecurity today, it's on the top of the list of their actually strategic thinking, and actions.
So then, is the business of the company then to create a technology that can be licensed to original equipment manufacturers or ISPs or to manufacturers?
If you look at today, there is a lot of already, I would say, there's a lot of solutions out there. The cybersecurity industry is huge, and it's growing, every day. It's like, I think projections are, we talk about $240 billion, in the next few years, in terms of market for cybersecurity. And today, on top of that, everything is over communication, over the cloud, so that means that, it's the security is not just having security on a piece of equipment or a computer, is really, in fact, how you communicate it, and criminality today, cyber criminality, it's basically manifests itself actually when you're trying to communicate, when you're trying to send information from your computer to another. This is always the weak point, is the transmission of somehow information over the internet. And today there's already actually a lot of encryption, that almost everything important that is transmitted from one computer to another. For example, your bank, when you communicated with your bank, in terms of doing transactions, for example, or even if you want to know how much money is left in your account, the communication is actually secured by a system of encryption. Okay, when you see your internet address, or a site, it's started by HTTP, but sometimes there's an S, and S means secured. Okay. Mm-hmm. And actually, when there's no S, you're basically means that somebody could easily probably crack or intervene in your transaction one way or another. So these security is usually ensured by through what it's called the public keys crypto systems, like RSA was one of the most used in the world, that use very sophisticated encryption algorithm. Okay, so the problem with that is that the quality of this encryption rely actually on the quality of the random numbers that they use as a seed to create these encryptions. As I said before in my presentation, in our conversation, it's that unfortunately most of these random numbers are generated themselves by another algorithm, okay, that specializes in generating random numbers. So that means that algorithm generating random numbers means that they're deterministic, because there are sort of equations that are involved, in the creation of these random numbers. So they become, in fact, pseudo-random numbers.
Sure.
So the quality of the encryption keys, in fact, is not at the top of what it used to be. That's the reason why when you have cyber criminals that are putting their talent, and they are extremely talented people that devote themselves to cyber criminality, and they have the infrastructure to do it and the time, they be able to crack almost anything they want. And today, actually, I would say it's only probably there are a few criminal organizations that can really crack very complex, I would say, cyber security systems. The problem is that actually with the emergence of quantum computers, it's part of the realm of quantum technologies. We are one of them, but quantum computers is something that is actually, the development is finalizing today, and it is believed that in 4 or 5 years, quantum computers are going to become mainstream. So a quantum computer has the capacity to multiply by millions of times the power of calculation of our current computers. So they, in the wrong hands, if I may say so, these computers will be able to crack almost any encryption key. And this is the big danger that if you look at the literature about what is important, today in terms of, cybersecurity and the big headaches coming, it's part also driven by the emergence actually of the quantum computers, who are going to make, in fact, cybersecurity really, really a big headache, and even sometimes create a situation of life and death, when they take, if you today, what happens, for example, last fall, in one of the water treatment plant in Florida, where they were able to get into the plant and change the parameters of purification. That means, and thanks God, they realize that, and they catch actually before it's starting to do some damage. But if that things happen and nobody even will know about it, you can actually starting to produce and poison, thousands of people.
Sure. So do you have customers now for this technology?
Well, our technology will be we are finalizing now the development is done. Now we are in the process to manufacture our first product. So before the end of the year, we should be able to have our first product based on this technology.
Okay, and so is the product then it's not a quantum computer?
No, it's a quantum, numbers generator. It is a very tiny little, component that would be able to get into, in a chip, or, that would be able to be put, to be developed as a USB key that you will be able to transport it, and basically what the technology will do is actually create these pure random numbers that could, in fact, take part after that in the encryption systems that we use today already. But this time, you'll have encryption systems that are basically uncrackable.
Right.
Because the seed of the system is actually a pure random number.
Sure.
And it cannot be guessed,
Right. Okay, so then is this got applications in the cryptocurrency world then?
Oh, absolutely. Because I have an article on my desk, where it says the most important things in blockchain, it's random numbers.
Right.
So blockchain is all about encryption. In fact, all the minings, the big work of validation, it's actually based on cryptology.
Yeah.
So we believe, for example, that the usage actually of our technology is going to dramatically simplify, in fact, the validation, the mining, in fact, of the transactions, that actually the backbone of blockchain, cryptocurrency, it's one of the application of blockchain. So I think this is one of the projects we're starting to work on now. It's actually develop, our own, maybe even blockchain system.
Yeah.
Based actually on, that would be a quantum blockchain, basically.
Right. Okay, well, that's a great introduction to the company, Francis. We're going to leave it there for now, but we'll come back to you soon. And it sounds like you're really disrupting the quantum world or the cybersecurity world. Thank you very much for your time today.
It was a pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You too. Bye for now. All right, so that's. Do you understand quantum number random generation?
No, you know what? You told me something. It's back to when you're in the quantum world, things can be at two places at once.
Well, a quantum
until it gets measured, and then it makes a decision, or something like that.
Yeah, I would hesitate to explain it any better than Francis. But what's interesting to me is look at the volume here in this stock.
Yeah. Volume.
This is
and on CNBC this week, there's a guy talking about how the valuation of these cybersecurity companies like Palo Alto, like you cringe thinking you can buy it, but yet it just keeps going higher because we're in a world where this cybersecurity is becoming increasingly the issue of the day.
Exactly. So we could see a situation where random number generation actually becomes quite the industry.
Yeah, I think there was an article the other day about was it Forbes magazine? They talked about it briefly. There's a little company.
Yeah.
They're in an interesting space. There's no question about it. Remember Certicom, the old Certicom?
No.
It got bought out by BlackBerry. This was, this is back in the late 90s, I think. Yeah.
Don't remember.
Yeah, that's another company, Certicom. There you go.
All right.
Cybersecurity.
So to address some of the other audience queries for this week, people wanted us to address hawkish and dovish commentary and how they affect markets. Elon Musk has the profile to create market direction. Ed and James have the profile to create market direction in certain stocks. But the Fed, no, the Fed, don't fight Ed and James. No, I'm kidding. Of course.
We're sorry. Look, I can't say.
And that's our show for today.
I've said enough.
That's it. We're done here. Our hawkish and dovish comments have no bearing on the markets whatsoever.
Yeah, next week you should dress up as a little hawk.
Ooh.
And I'll dress up as a dove.
Ooh.
Pure as the driven snow.
And I'll be like big beak.
Wah, wah. Right, you don't have to worry about that.
Anyways, thanks for watching. There's our show for this week. Don't forget to write us if you have any questions. jwest@midaslaughter.com. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again.
It's a wrap.